you know what? We're going to go ahead and just give you more money right now.
You know, you've been such a great guy, and you've negotiated in good faith, and you've been so truthful and forthcoming with us. Let's give you more money.
Forget about the failed drug test and the suspensions and you looking like a whale on a jet ski. We don't care. Here's all the money. Take it all.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Donut Bag, part of the Pulse Podcast Network, and now another network, which I'll talk about in a second. In this episode, it's Ravens week once again, and I preview the game with Michael Telford, aka Chibs, from the Neutral Zone Podcast. Then I talk to Coach Warzu and Mark Hagelauer about our good buddy Le'Veon Bell, and we preview Week 8 in the NFL. Then we wrap up the World Series with Johnny Black and Bruce Cagle Jr. from the Scorecrow. So this week, the Donut Bag became a member of another network, and I am so excited about this. This is the Pod Hub Network. It is a new podcast network that has been formed. This consists of Around the 412, Donardo's Dugout, and North Shore 9 from Pittsburgh, and those are three of the best podcasts in Pittsburgh, and also Trash Cats and YIM from Jacksonville. So I'm hoping to have all those guys on, and I am so excited to be part of this, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So stay tuned for that. As always, if you're listening to this, please subscribe either on Podbeam or Apple or Google Play or Spreaker or Stitcher, or there's so many. So just make sure to follow or subscribe or whatever, so because it does help a lot. So the Donut Bag starts right now. All right, it's Ravens week once again. Steelers Ravens part 2. With me to talk about it is Chibs, Michael Telford. He is at This Is Chibs on Twitter, writer for Russell Street Reports and host of Neutral Zone Infraction Podcast. How you doing, sir?
Doing all right, Joey. How about yourself?
Doing all right. So we have some breaking news. Just today, the NFL trade deadline passed, and the Ravens traded for Ty Montgomery from with the Packers. Why did they make this trade?
At first, I was a little aggravated by it, but then, so it was a 2020 7th rounder. They don't have the 2019 7th rounder because they traded it to the Jaguars last year for Luke Bowanko. I think that's how you say his name. I don't know. He's no longer with the team anyway. So honestly, Ty Montgomery, he's been the 4th leading rusher on the Packers. But he does have a 4.8 yard per carry average over his career, which is obviously really good. Our run game has been struggling. Buck Allen, who has been our pass catching back, he's averaging 2.6 yards per carry. I think Ty Montgomery is a better runner than him. I also think where he used to be a wide receiver, he's probably a better pass catcher as well. I think what they're envisioning for him is kind of that Danny Woodhead role that they thought they were going to get in 2017 before, Woodhead got injured on the first play that he ran. So I think that's probably why they're looking to get a spark in the run game. They're looking to help open up the passing game. You got to think with Ty Montgomery in there and Lamar Jackson in there, there's just so much that they can do on offense in those snaps. So it kind of gives them a little bit more versatility and a little bit more explosiveness. Granted, he's going to be running behind the 31st ranked run blocking line in football. Only the Cardinals are worse. But he should do a little bit better than Buck Allen. I don't think he's there to take the job from Alex Collins. But I do think he will turn into like an every third down back.
Okay. Yeah, Buck Allen really really a bit of a disappointment. He was always, I play a lot of fantasy football. He was always considered like a pretty good sleeper and somebody that had a lot of potential, but seems like it never materialized.
Yeah, he's been he's been a top 15 receiving back both of the years that he played all 16 games, which was of course last year and then a few years before that. But he's never been much of a runner. If Buck Allen's in, you can almost guarantee that it's going to be a passing down. Occasionally they do use him running. Sometimes he's even outsnapped Alex Collins in the run game. But 2.6 yards per carry, man. That's not sustainable in the NFL. I've seen some fans say, oh, well, we should cut Alex Collins and have Buck be the starter because he's more explosive. And it's just kind of well, you're an idiot and you don't know what you're talking about. Buck was never a running guy. And I think they're just looking for a passing option that's more explosive with the rock in their hands. So I think that's kind of, we might be saying Buck is we have Alex Collins, Buck Allen, and Ty Montgomery. All of them are in contract years. So none of their contracts go past the end of the season. So I think what they'll probably try to do, if they can get something out of Ty Montgomery, they'll try to keep him, and then they'll let go of Buck Allen.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting how it all plays out. I mean, you have to figure the Packers got rid of Montgomery because of what he did in that last game against the Rams, where he kind of gave away the game with that with that kickoff return, and it looks like there was a lot of bad blood there. So because trading for a 7th round pick, that's basically giving him away, and that's no risk for the Ravens. So that has a potential to really work out for the Ravens, and kind of as a Steeler fan, that kind of scares me a little bit because usually when somebody just starts on a team after a trade or acquisition or something like that, they usually it usually works out really well for them. So we'll see.
With it being so early on in the week, I mean, he might be active on game day. I don't think it's a high probability of him being active, but if he is, I mean, that's an area that you guys struggle is against good pass catching running backs. And I mean, this guy's 6 foot. Like I said, he used to be a slot wide receiver, so he could be dangerous.
Him, yeah. Okay, I remember last year the Packers were so desperate at they're so light at running back that they basically turned Montgomery from a wide receiver into a running back. So yeah, okay,
right.
That's
it's
him.
That
guy. So okay, yeah, we'll see how that works out. So Steelers and Ravens play the first time, and the Ravens just manhandled them. It wasn't close. The score was 26-14, but
the game really was not that close.
It wasn't. It was basically, you could say it was the low point of the season for the Steelers. And they've recovered since then. They've won 3 in a row, and the Ravens not so good. They're 1-3 since then. What has happened since that first Steeler game?
It has been a myriad of. This is not my podcast, so I imagine I can't cuss. But it has not been good. So the defense has, I think, Wink's genius that he showed in the first few weeks has kind of gotten away from him. I think opposing offenses have kind of figured it out. And I think Wink is going to have to make the proper adjustments to counter that again. I also think that the offense, in 8 games, there are 22 drops on the Baltimore Ravens. Okay. That's, you had Coach Harbaugh this offseason say, hey, we want wide receivers that can catch the ball. No kidding. That's kind of the point of being a wide receiver. You got Michael Crabtree. He struggled 8 drops through like the first 4 or 5 games. Willie Snead and John Brown both had passes bounce off their hands against the Panthers. I think the Ravens kind of started regressing towards the mean. They never really play well in October. So I'm hoping that they can come out swinging in November and December. However, what I see from the team is just kind of more of the same. You still have Joe Flacco had his one game where everybody wanted to rip him apart because of how he played, and it was well deserved. He did not play well last week against Carolina. You have the offense falling apart one week, you have the defense falling apart another week, and then you get a game like last week where they both fell apart at the same time. It just seems like they haven't been able to get on the same page since those first few weeks.
It's crazy because I thought the offense had it all figured out. You revamp all the wide receivers. It's like, okay, Flacco looks better. It's like, okay, they got this figured out. And then, I mean, they destroy the Titans. Maybe the Titans are awful. I don't know, but that was just one of the great defensive performances of NFL history.
Right.
But and then the Saints game was just, the Saints are just really good.
They are really good. That was like a moral victory loss, I felt like. Like, you had to feel good about where the team was because they went toe-to-toe with one of the juggernauts of the league and, lost by 1 point on a freak Justin Tucker miss.
Oh, my God.
222 straight extra points, and he misses that one. You kind of have to feel okay about that game. Then the Carolina game just kind of rip your heart out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and, I mean, Panthers are really solid too, so that's understandable. I mean, I think the Panthers are going to have a really good year. The Browns game, I have no explanation for. What the hell happened there?
Again, I have no idea. They just came out. Like we spoke about the first time I was on your show. Divisional games, you got to kind of throw the record out and throw history out and throw all that stuff out because you don't know what can happen. And the Ravens just had one of those games where they played down to their opponent. Obviously, as we see, these are the same old Browns, regardless of the talent that they have on the field. We just played down to the level of Hugh Jackson. It bit us in the butt.
I have a feeling it was probably a letdown game. Beating the Steelers in Pittsburgh on a Sunday night, that had to be, they had to be really up for that, and then you play the Browns. It's like, it's happened to the Steelers before. It's like you have a huge game, and then the next game is someone not so good. It's like you struggle.
Yeah, and I truly believe that it was just one of those things where they were looking ahead of the Browns, and they were just like, oh well, we're gonna beat them, not an issue. Manhandled the Steelers. They had that thing where like the Steelers tied with the Browns. And then we manhandled the Steelers. So we were like, oh, well, we probably manhandled the Browns too. It shouldn't be a big deal. And then they just kind of came out and everything kind of sputtered.
Yeah. But now they're 4-4. Steelers are first in the division because of their wonderful tie.
Right.
Shenanigans, so they're by percentage points ahead of the Bengals, but the Ravens are third, and seems like they're at a crossroads. It's a division game, and they need to make up ground. So, do you think the Ravens are going to be, desperate and think of this as a definite as a must win?
It is a must win. There's no way they can't think of it as a must win. I absolutely think that they're going to come out and be desperate for a win. I hope they don't let that get the best of them. But I think they're going to come out and they're going to play their heart out. You know how the Steelers-Ravens games go. One team is normally just like they come out and they just show that they want to win from snap one, and that's what the Ravens need to do. I mean, we still match up very well against Pittsburgh. John Brown had himself a day against you guys. John Brown had himself a hell of a day against the Saints, and the Saints defense is the Saints secondary is probably better than Pittsburgh's. So yes, I think they can still win. I'm not nearly as positive about it as I have been the past few games. In fact, on my podcast, I will probably give a score prediction where they lose, which is later tonight. But they match up well. You got Big Ben, who has a broken finger. Granted, it's his non-throwing hand. You have your offensive line still not necessarily 100% health. You have your secondary, which